it's like almost like starting over in a sense, because you basically pick up your whole life, career, and unless you had like really large commercial success, moving to a new town, you're reestablishing your presence and your brand, which in a lot of ways is really nice because it's a good way to rebrand without like a ton of, people that are disappointed. Of a lot of times you'll get an artist that they're trying something new or maybe something that fits a little bit more in alignment with their artistic vision, and people that really liked their older material or maybe like their older, I mean, like Miley Cyrus is a perfect example, as a child star, she it was very appropriate, like her type of music and the career. And then as she grew into an adult woman, that change was so drastic for a lot of people and for such a huge fan base. A lot of times it's like, it can be a lot to, for people to empathize with or even, be interested in. So it's kind of nice being here and being able to rebrand myself and take some liberties that maybe I didn't take as much when I was back home in Arizona.
Yeah, you get to expand on opportunities like you'd mentioned that maybe you wouldn't have taken back home, and now because you're essentially doing a rebrand by simply moving. Yeah,
Right.
it's so you just to kind of catch everybody up, since we're going to just kind of jump into it here. So you're based out of Nashville now, but you're originally from Arizona. Um, what was it like growing up in Arizona for you?
I loved it. It's I think it's a great place to raise a family. I love the West Coast. I loved just how new Arizona was. So there was a lot of really cool. It was just cool to be a part of like the growth of the state and the Phoenix Valley. I feel like, yeah, as a young person, like it was a really great place to grow up. Definitely feel like since moving to Nashville, I kind of knew when my time was up there. Um, and going back and forth now visiting Arizona, I'm like, okay, I'm grateful for the time I had there, but I definitely feel like I'm where I'm supposed to be in Nashville now.
Mhm. What was that moment that you knew, okay, my time in Arizona is up, it's time to go somewhere else?
Oh wow. Um, I had actually been trying to move to Nashville for about 8 years. And every time I would get ready, gear up for something, like the move, something would happen
Mhm.
and interrupt that process. And a lot of it was like really, you know, um, big disappointments or like big life events that would
Mhm.
happen. So there's definitely a part of me that has always, pretty much since I graduated high school, was ready to just hit the ground running with music. Um, but I remember my like early 20s feeling like content at home and really relishing in the atmosphere of Arizona and what was around me, and really loving being there. And then right about when I hit 26, I needed health insurance, and music wasn't quite offering that option for me. I was trying to do some different alternate uh, healthcare plans, and that's just like a whole other world and kind of complexity. And I ended up getting a job at Starbucks, and I remember feeling so defeated because I was like, man, like I've been doing music for so long, and then to go from, I'd already done, the minimum wage service industry type jobs in the beginning, and then transitioned into music, and having to go back to that, it felt really, really defeating at first. But hindsight now, and after working there for a couple years, as I transitioned to Nashville from Arizona, I realized like it actually was one of the best things that could have happened for me. There's something really beautiful and like really gratifying about serving people,
Mhm.
and also just kind of stepping away from music as like my um it was a really great way for me to like get away from like the product, because
Yeah.
my parents have talked about it with me a bunch, like when you're a musician or an artist, or an entertainer, you're your brand, so you don't really get to escape from yourself
Mhm.
often. And being able to do that, I actually went in, I didn't tell anybody about anything about my career and just kind of let that naturally unfold over time, but made really genuine connections with people and friendships. And the same thing when I moved to Nashville with that job, I was able to kind of have a really great perspective of just starting over and the possibilities, and knowing that you can actually do a lot with a little, and growing my business here, starting at like a minimum wage. Like I just have such a deeper appreciation for hard work and finances and everything that goes into, business and being a person.
Yeah, for sure. You touched on something very interesting that as you were speaking, I was reflecting on a couple of things. And it's like you talk about, making that trip to Nashville or making that move to Nashville, it being essentially a long process, because it's like you try and make the move, something happens, and then you take a step back, and then it kind of goes through this process. And then you find, did you say you'd gotten a job at Starbucks, or was that when you were out in Arizona?
Um, it started in Arizona and I transferred to
Okay.
Nashville. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I was just making sure that I didn't mishear something. And so you'd gotten the job at Starbucks, and that was kind of like a safety, not like a safety net, quote unquote, to get you out to Nashville, because it's like you had at least a guaranteed job of some sort. So you're going to be making some kind of income, and you could still follow your music. And I'm looking at myself as you were saying all this, and I'm like, that's what I've been waiting for, because I've been saying for the last 4.5 years that eventually Live and Amplified is going to move to Nashville. It's going to have to move to Nashville, but
Yeah.
I'm waiting for that safety net, like, because I don't want to move out there without some kind of income. I could freelance for a while and probably do okay, but what happens if my freelance dries up, or what happened, just like all these different things. And so it it's always very interesting looking at yourself from like other people's stories, where it's like, I think, but also kind of giving me the realization that I can't wait on that safety net anymore, because I am getting older, and like I'm going to be 37 next year. So it's just kind of like, you know, got to make that transition.
Yeah, and honestly, I really believe age is just a number, and you can pick up something new at 60 years old. It's really just so much a mindset. But I do think that if you have the ability, and that was kind of where I was at, where it kind of life kind of pushed me that way. It was like I needed health insurance, and um, Starbucks is just such an incredible company. The way that they take care of their employees.
Mhm.
So joining a business model and a company that um, is founded around their motto is, we're not in the uh, coffee business serving people, we're in the people business serving coffee, and that's the customers as well as the employees. And it truly is exactly what they say, the way that they take care of their customers as well as their employees. And for me as an artist and a businesswoman, I think it was really good for me, especially at the time when, sometimes when you're too close to something, you can kind of get burnt out and feel like,
Mhm.
oh, why isn't this working? Or why isn't this taking off? And having an alternate perspective that still eventually like essentially feeds into what it is that you're doing,
Mhm.
which Starbucks was that for me. I mean, that job gave me a perspective on people, gave me like a it lit inside of me this even more extroverted person to talk to people and to connect with people, that has translated really well for me here in Nashville. And yeah, sometimes it's just doing something that, like, I don't know, I there's a part of me that likes to do things kind of the hard way sometimes, not in like a negative context, but Jack White is an artist I really admire, and he talks about that as well, learning an instrument the way it was meant to be played. And there might be three people in a room full of 100,000 people that actually notice, but what are you doing it for? And So, kind of the same thing with that. Like when you're building your character from the inside out, knowing what it is that you need. And sometimes it's things that, maybe don't sound as appealing, but Starbucks was one of the best times of my life and set me up really well for success getting myself started here in Nashville officially. And it was truly that, just taking that plunge and going, okay, I'm going to do this. And if it doesn't work, something else will happen. And it was the same thing with trying to move here. I mean, I tried to move here back in 2014. I had a friend in radio and he really believed in me and knew all the radio, or all the record label executives, and was going to move here and basically be the person to knock on doors for me. And life happens. He actually got hit by a car and died. And
Oh, wow.
yeah, it was so tragic and just came out of nowhere and absolutely devastating. And life is wild like that,
Yeah.
to quote Khloe Kardashian, who's probably quoting somebody else, but you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans, So I do think that there's a part of it that's like, when the time is right, opportunities present themselves. But I think the important thing that we can control is our engagement in our lives and, knowing, okay, this is something that I need. What are some ways that I can try to get that? So for me, health insurance, I tried a number of ways. Starbucks happened to be the one that worked. And then because of that, I was able to move here and have a little bit of, like you said, a safety net. But I knew it wasn't forever. It was a season, and was able to make the most of it. And the same thing here in Nashville, I play on Broadway. And it's so funny because so many people told me for years and years before I moved here, never play on Broadway. Don't play on Broadway. Nobody's going to take you serious if you play on Broadway. And you know what? Maybe 8 years ago, that might have been sort of true, but the amount of exposure that I've had here playing on Broadway, the amount of people that I've met in the industry, as well as just all over the world, you can't get that anywhere else. I had a friend tell me, it's better that I'm actually out there, even if I'm not doing my original show every week. It's boot camp, so you're honing your craft.
Yeah.
You're meeting so many incredible musicians that just push you to become better and better. And that was a big thing too. People are like, oh, like there's too many musicians, like, there's never going to be, work for you. And that is such a lie. I'm constantly like, guys, I need a bass player this weekend, or, or people like, we need someone to fill in. Like that is just the norm here. So there is so much room for musicians out here to come and be a part of this community. And then again, the stability of just really honing your craft and meeting people in like it's almost like Vegas in a sense. Like, people come to Vegas to watch Celine Dion, or I'm actually going there next week to see Lady Gaga. I'm so excited. And
Nice.
yeah, so it's nice for them as an artist, I'm sure, to be like, okay, my show is like right here and I can sleep in the same bed every night and I don't have to like hurry up and do this or that with travel. And you kind of get the same sort of effect on Broadway. And again, like, while I know that Broadway is serving a really great purpose for me, and my motto has always been, I don't work for Broadway, make Broadway work for me. I know it's temporary. I know that's not my forever. And so I look at it with less of an intimidating or almost taxing, where a lot of people, same thing at Starbucks, like, oh, like, I don't know what else to do. And I think when you don't give yourself a light at the end of the tunnel for, certain means to an ends that help you with income, it can get a little daunting. But if you can know that you're using it for a tool for you, for your greater good, it's so much more, it's less, you feel like you're in less of a chokehold,
Yeah, for sure. It's, I've always been, anytime I go to Nashville, I've always been very against going to Broadway because I feel like that's the touristy thing to do. And I want to go hear I want to go hear like original music. But I had somebody explain it to me once. What you brought up, the boot camp aspect of it. And it's like, and hearing you break that down on top of what a buddy of mine told me about just it's preparing you for life on the road. Like if your goal is to be a touring musician, it is preparing you for life on the road, because yes, You're going to play 3-4 hour gig on Broadway. Yes, 9 times out of 10, it's going to be the same X amount of songs, but that's really what touring is. That's what you do out on the road. Yeah, there might be slight variations or whatnot, but it's preparing you for life on the road. And my concern's always kind of been burnout, like we mentioned burnout a little bit ago, but as a musician, when you're young and you're just very full of ideas and you're eager to get out there, that burnout can kind of subside as long as you really enjoy what you're doing.
Totally.
So,
Absolutely.
so my perspective on Broadway's kind of changed. I'm still not keen on going there, but that's just because I don't like being around a lot of people. I don't like being confined in a small place and all that stuff. That's just personal preferences. It's got nothing to do with the actual venues anymore. But so.
No, and I totally understand that. Because people, when I have a night off, like, oh my gosh, you have a night off, you should come out to Broadway. And I'm like, that's the last place I want to be. I just spent the last 4 nights there working, so I see both sides of it for sure. And I'm the same. Like when I visit a new city or a place that's really popping, I always want to go where the locals are going. And I think a lot of, but there's fun and on both sides of it. And, kind of like going to a sporting event, at least for me, I feel like I know people that are playing. It's a lot more fun. So, or like to me, like going to a big stadium, is like it's a lot too, like being in like large crowds like that. And the same with Broadway. Like if I know, oh, my friends are playing and I'm so excited, I want to go watch them. That's like a totally different kind of perspective. And like you said, it is it's boot camp. It's really impressive to watch musicians perform at the caliber that they do for the period of time that they do, and week after week. And it truly does prepare you for the shorter shows that you might have on the road, that maybe people who don't have that experience might struggle with vocal fatigue or
Yeah. Because had somebody on the podcast last night that was getting ready to go out on a little DIY tour for the first time, and they were going to go from playing maybe once or twice a week to playing like 20 shows in a row. And I brought that up about vocal care, and I was like, so have you been thinking about that? Are you preparing like mentally, physically? Like, what are you doing? And I think that's something that just a lot of people tend to overthink. Like, I know this is my second podcast today, and I know if I were to try and do another one tonight, like later, my voice would be hurting tomorrow. But I know about 2 is where my limit is. And if I were to try and do this like several days in a row, that'd be bad news.
Right.
So,
it helps you. Broadway has helped me push myself past the limits that I thought I had. Even with songs that like I would have never thought I could sing. I don't know, when you get into that like groove of like, okay, I did that, maybe I could do this, and you try it and you kind of realize like the toolbox that you have inside of you and kind of find a way. And again, of course, like practicing safe singing and resting and all of that is really important. But it just like anything, the more you do it, the better you get at it. And I think Broadway is a really great way to condense the like 10,000 hours theory, because it's just happening like that. So
So I have to ask, what is your go-to cover song when you're playing Broadway? What's like the one that if you realize that you're kind of losing the crowd, what is your go-to song?
That is a great question. That also depends on the time of day that I'm playing.
Fair.
I
thought you were going to say venue, and I was like, oh boy. Yeah.
Well, no, so lately I've been playing more of the evening shows. And if I'm playing the later show, you're pretty much never gonna lose if you play Mr. Brightside.
Yeah.
We play Misery Business and Sugar We're Going Down. That's kind of the like demographic right now is
Yeah.
like people. It's funny because I feel like, 10 years ago, a lot of people that were coming on Broadway, it was more of like the 80s rock crowd.
Mm.
And we still do a lot of that too. But
Yeah.
now it's all like people my age that are coming out, and that was like music we listened to in high school.
Mm.
So they're definitely like really excited when they hear some like pop punk and some
Yeah.
emo. But I think the song that I've been doing lately that typically is like a dead ringer, people usually throw money in the tip jars. I Will Always Love You.
Really?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
I wasn't expecting that one. I was expecting like some like Friends in Low Places, or a song like that. Like that is just screams super Nashville.
you know, Nashville has a reputation, and it makes sense, of
Mhm.
being the country music
Yeah.
capital country, but it is actually the music capital of the
Hmm.
country. So country music is absolutely like the main ingredient here.
Hmm.
And again, I also think like part of the blessing of the timeline of my journey of being here and waiting and coming here when I did, um, we are able to play Paramore, we are able to play Kings of Leon,
Hmm.
songs that like Katy Perry, things that you wouldn't necessarily have expected as like your
Yeah.
stereotypical Nashville show. And when I am creating a show, I really try to avoid the songs that I
Hmm.
feel like everybody is going to hear at every other bar, that
Hmm.
being like a Friends in Low Places, even Man, I Feel Like a Woman. I just feel like amazing song, of course,
Yeah.
but it's like a personal challenge for me if like we can get through a show and not have played that song. Like it's not on my main set. We'll do it if somebody tips for it, but
Hmm.
I try to entertain people with songs that I feel like maybe they're like, oh my gosh, I forgot about that. Like we've just
Right.
started doing Spice Girls Wannabe, and
Nice.
people are like, wow. And like it's so fun to watch the reactions in
Mm.
the room of people that they weren't even thinking of that song, and then that came back and they're like, oh my gosh. And then the requests that they start sharing
Mhm.
are even more fun. That happened to me. I was playing at a venue down on Broadway, and someone had requested Every Time We Touch by Cascada. And I was like, I love that song. So yes, we're going to do it.
Yeah.
And we did it, and it just went over so well because people were not expecting it,
Mhm.
that we do it every show now. And I always try to time it just right with the crowd so that like, that's a big part of what I do too. I'm reading the room to kind of get the vibe of like, okay, where's everybody at? Are we a heavy country
Mhm.
crowd? Are they into the pop rock? Are they
Mhm.
into, what is it? What are they into? And then by the end of the show, for our like evening set, I have this like just power hour, and we just go song to song to song, and I just pick bangers, like
Yeah.
things that I know people are gonna be like, oh my gosh, and the room just fills up, and it's so fun to feel that
Yeah.
energy. And then there's typically a DJ that comes after us, so it's kind of perfect, like gets them set up for that
Yeah.
sort of atmosphere and mood. And that's actually where I'm going tonight. I'm playing at Florida Georgia Line House, and
Oh, nice.
it is always popping
Nice.
on a Saturday night there. Yeah.
Nice. You just gave me some song ideas. So we do one of the things that we do is I host a country radio show.
Cool.
And we're getting ready to do like an actual live show at a music festival at the end of October. And I've been trying to think of different things to do to make it a little bit more fan engaging. And since this is going to be like a country singer songwriter music festival, there's going to be a lot of musicians there. I was playing with this idea of doing a segment called Can It Country, and basically having a
Oh,
wheel of fortune of just random songs, spinning it and having somebody come up and see if they could turn it into a country song.
yes. I love that.
And so you just gave me some ideas for songs that I wasn't even thinking about, because I was thinking like like some Paramore stuff like that, like a little bit more center of the lane stuff and like some oddball songs. But you just gave me some really good ideas for songs to put on this wheel of
Oh my
misfortune
gosh.
or whatever.
You'll have to tell me how those go over.
Oh, I will be filming it because I'm hoping this will turn into something that just kind of makes it fun because that's
Love
what I
that.
like to do. So,
That's
um,
amazing.
yeah. So you've been in Nashville now, you said 8 years, right?
5 years.
5 years.
So I was trying to move here for about eight
Yes.
years.
Gotcha.
And then 5 years ago, finally stars aligned. It was the right time. Everything kind of worked out. And I'm on my, well, this is technically my 5th year or
Mm,
6th year. I moved here in 2018. So whatever
fifth
the
year.
math is
Yeah,
on
it'd
that.
be your fifth. You're in your 5th year.
Yeah.
Um, so how do you kind of balance your original stuff with a lot of your more Broadway gigs? Is it easy to balance it, or how do you kind of go about that?
That is a great question. Still figuring that out
Sure.
for myself, but really trying to trust the process. Broadway has actually really helped me as an original artist in a way that I had no idea it would. When you're performing that much, you figure out what you like to perform and what you don't like to perform. And especially being on Broadway and having so many different types of requests. And I love every genre of music. So Broadway has helped me realize where I really shine and like
Mm,
what lights me up inside, as opposed to things that I do that I'm like, okay, like I understand the appeal of this.
mm,
Like, we'll get a request for Redneck Woman, or Here for the Party. And while they're really fun songs, um, they're not ones that I get like really excited to sing because that's not really my like flavor personally. So it's kind of helped me learn that about myself. I have really fallen in love with heart even more than I had been in the past. Singing Alone and Barracuda are some of my
mm.
favorites to do. And
Yeah.
so as I've been writing, it's been helping me kind of hone my sound and figure out as an artist like what I enjoy performing on stage and then also what resonates with the crowd so I can kind of um mirror that in my original music. I try to do showcases that I feel like are advantageous for me wherever I'm at
Mm,
in the year, during my work season, and try to partner myself with people with groups that are really established and great and treat their artists really well. Whiskey Jam is one that's incredible out here. Bus Call with Tin Roof is definitely another staple. So I've done a lot of showcases with them, and that's always fun because you get to bring your whole band out. And there's not a lot of those in Nashville, like the full band
mm.
showcases.
Yeah.
So being able to do that, I've been kind of like slowly working on my original show and like, okay, how would I place my original songs in a set, and implementing tracks in and kind of figuring out which players like really click with my
Mm.
music. And yeah, it's been awesome.
Nice. It's got to be a good learning experience, kind of building out your own original show, like having had like you've been playing on Broadway for a good bit, kind of playing that music, kind of taking this turn to figure out your own original show has to be like a really fun learning experience because you get to kind of finally, well, not finally, you get to kind of decide what you want your live sound to be.
Yeah. And you get to do it in front of a lot of your peers, which is
Mm,
really fun. So I've had some really cool writes come out of it,
mhm.
collaborations, and um, playing my original songs with people that I play downtown with. If people come downtown and request original music, they already know it, so it's kind of fun to get to work that into the set as well. But it is a really great place to workshop what I'm doing and building, and really hone in on that sound and feel more and more confident with the direction of where I'm going. And
Mhm.
I think the hardest part for me lately has been writing and recording new music, just because when you're performing so much, like
Yeah.
you want like a couple days to rest your voice. So trying to coordinate that, but that's definitely on my radar. I have some songs I've definitely been sitting on for a while, that I'd love to record. And then on top of that is finding the right producer that's going to give you the right sound that you're looking for. And I've kind of been through a lot of different rounds with different producers over the years, figuring out how to click and how to, it's like dating, like
Hmm.
how do you find chemistry with a creative partner and someone that can hear and understand your vision, your direction, and help you bring that to life. And so that's something that I've also been just allowing the process and, trying to surrender to, okay, I'm along for the ride and I'm doing my best every day to just keep my eyes open for that and learn. And I'm a student of life. So, the more I can learn, the better. And the more people that I can meet and collaborate with that are in alignment with the direction I want and knowing myself and knowing my vision it's all part of the journey. But
Hmm. It
yeah, it's not as structured as maybe like other businesses might be.
Mhm. It sounds like you're just enjoying living life right now as a musician in Nashville, and as opportunities arise, you're taking them.
Yeah. I think that it's a good thing. For a long time I was so tunnel vision,
Mhm.
career, to the point where it was like I was really miserable. And I think you can't really force things in life anyways. I mean, there's definitely like there's a difference between being proactive
Mhm.
and forcing things. And if I'm proactive, that's me waking up every day to, okay, what do I know I can do or need to get done and want to
Mhm.
get done? And then also quality of life is important. I
Yeah,
have a little kitty cat that spending time with my cat and spending time with friends and um, doing things for like mental health
mm,
and sometimes that is, writing, sometimes that's going for a drive, like whatever that might be, enjoying life, like you said, is I think balance is just always going to be important no matter what you're doing. But for anyone in life, it's a really important thing to try to master
yeah,
if you can.
for sure, for sure. I 100% agree. And, you brought up that you're kind of trying to find this balance while still writing, recording music, but you also have all your live shows. So you're trying to find that balance of not overdoing it, but still being able to put out your original music. Um, Kind of walk me through just shortly here. What's a song that's really got you excited right now that is kind of sitting in your back pocket?
Okay, I've got two.
Okay.
I have one that I feel like every time I've played it at a showcase, it always goes over really well. It's very anthemic. It's called Green Light.
Hmm.
It's like my ode to the 80s rock heart, um, meets a Lady Gaga sort of vibe. So just some finishing touches on that one before I release that into the world and getting that prepared. That's one I think will go over really well with people because it has tended to do that in the
Yeah.
past at different showcases. It's just really like big belting anthemic, fun song. But I wrote a song and I'm still like kind of deciding the title of it. Um, this one was more like for me,
Hmm.
and it's one of my favorite ones to play, um, especially by myself. But it's a very like Lana Del Rey influence meets maybe little Katy Perry, Ariana Grande, kind of mysterious song. Right now, we're just going with like Kitty Kitty is the working title, but figuring out exactly what I want to call it. But it's like I call it my like sexy lullaby.
Hmm.
So it's like a song I wrote to, well, it's a, yeah, that's probably the best way to describe it. It's a sexy lullaby. And it's,
Nice.
it's the one that like makes me excited. That I feel like that melody came like right out of my soul. And I'm proud of the way that I kind of wordsmith the lyrics, and makes me happy.
Yeah, for sure. It's always really interesting. We could sit here and talk about the songs you have out all day, but I really like kind of diving in on songs that are in the lab, so to speak, right now, because
Yeah,
they're fresh in your mind. You're working on them. For all I know, you could have been working on Kitty Kitty before we jumped on here.
right.
Just stuff like that. So it's always interesting to kind of talk during the creative process, or like while songs are being workshopped or worked on, or all that stuff. So
Yeah. Yeah, I'm always intrigued by that too. Lana Del Rey released a song this year called Yes to Heaven, and I remember hearing it on like Instagram on a reel, and I don't even think it was her voice, it was somebody
mm,
else, but like I've heard like every demo variation of that song until like finally she released her version, and it was kind of cool to hear like the different, and imagine like the different, um takes that people had on
mm,
it, and maybe this was how one of the writers, or that sort of thing. So it is fun to see how music is constructed, and like
mhm,
where songs come from, and it's truly such an organic process. I think that's a big reason why um I'm really settling into this idea too, of just letting my life be more organic as well.
mhm,
Um, Inspiration isn't something that you can just manufacture.
for sure.
Um, it's something you have to kind of look for and allow to come into your life when it does. And sometimes, oftentimes, it hits you when you're in the most inconvenient place for it to. But a lot of times that's what makes it the most memorable, and also great stories about it. So,
Yeah, it's like you're in this awkward position, and it's like, oh, I need to like figure out a way to remember this. Yeah, that's
right, right.
those are always the fun stories to hear. It's like, oh yeah, I was driving 100 down the highway and like whatever, and it's like I had this idea and didn't have my phone, so I had to try and figure out how to remember it. So,
Totally, totally. Oh, yeah. Too many
oh
times it's
yeah.
happened.
So as a person, a musician, however you want to define this, what keeps you motivated? What keeps you going?
That is a great question. I don't really feel like I have a choice, honestly. It's one of those things, like, it's just so deeply embedded inside me. I thought I was crazy for a long time, but I just remember being a little kid and just having this, like, knowing that, like, I was going to do this with my life, um, and really shied away from it for most. I've seen stories of kids that are like, "I wanna be a singer. Mom, take me here. I wanna go sing at this," and, like, I was not that kid. I was very, um I could never do that, very, like, shy about it, very, doubted myself for a long time, and I feel like my 20s were a really, solidifying part of my journey of just, this is what I'm supposed to do, and
Mm,
this is my calling, what I feel in my heart is meant for me. Um, so the times when I now feel unmotivated, it's funny you say that, because I kind of feel like I'm in a bit of a rut lately, just having a lot of life things going on, which is definitely like never glamorous to tell like industry people. Like, they're like, well, we don't care about that. It's like, okay, but that's my life too, like
mm,
it's real life. But it's just in me. Like, I can't, the thought of doing anything else just makes me so depressed. And I'm not, it's not that I'm even not open to that. I
mm,
am, but it's so embedded in who I am to do this. And every time I get on stage on Broadway, I might be, okay, I've got 3.5 hours. I need to, and I've been
yeah.
running around all day doing X, Y, and Z, and I have to kind of conserve my energy, and I'm tired and this, and that. I get on stage, and when you connect with people, and especially when you sing songs that you believe in, at
Mhm.
least for me, it's like, wow, like that makes me want to make music like that too, because I'm just so moved by what I'm singing and then watching how it has influenced and moved other people and how I get to be the vessel for that. I think that is probably like, if I was gonna pinpoint something, probably what continues to keep me motivated lately.
That's absolutely amazing. Just I that's all I got for you right there. That's because you touched on something that just I hate using the word triggered, but you said something unintentionally that really triggered me that you'd been like, say you're going through life stuff and it's hard to tell industry people because they don't care. And it's
Right.
like that just tells me why live and amplified is different because we do care. Like I've literally been in situations where it's like I was told, "Oh, oh, yep, I don't care." And it's like, but so being in that situation where it's like I want somebody to care, it's like, yeah, I don't know why that triggered me so much, but it did. So,
Well, but I mean, probably because yeah, when it resonates with you, there's nothing more disheartening as a human being to feel discredited or unvalidated. And, I had so many people, why don't you just move to Nashville? Why don't you go on The Voice? Why don't you go on American Idol? And when you stop listening to your intuition and you start listening to the voices around you, you lose yourself, you lose your
mhm,
identity, you lose your vision and your focus for your life. And it's hard to put blinders up, but it's also hard to glamorize those for people that aren't truly invested in what you're doing. I recently started watching the Kardashians,
mm,
and I, for like the longest time, was like, I don't like reality TV, like it's not my vibe, but I love Travis Barker.
mm,
And I was like, okay, like he married Courtney, I'm interested now. So I started watching, and watching these women show those parts of their life. And of course they do it, and they have this incredible budget that they've built and
mhm,
all the above, but like watching the real reality of how they're showing like a day in their life is really inspiring to me to see, you know, Kylie talk about, yeah, there was like a year I hermited because I just had a baby, and, of all these paparazzi in the news, and hearing that and seeing that like it's important to honor those things. And even with celebrities and people of like, bigger status than where I'm at, seeing that they honor that and take time for that makes me feel validated as well. And also to know like the people that really believe in you, they're they're on your side because they care about you, and they
mhm.
care about your health and and Starbucks was so much of that to me, to see how much they truly care about their employees and bettering their quality of life. So yeah, when you're around people that are so fast paced and so, you know, thank you next,
Mhm.
just overly corporate minded, it can be really disheartening. But part of my journey was, when everybody's asking why I'm not moving to Nashville, I couldn't quite pinpoint it. And then I had this like moment I'll never forget. I realized I was driving home in the desert. There's a big old moon in the sky. And it was just like a light bulb went off. And my little sister is 11 years younger than me, and she was going from middle school to high school and
Mhm.
had always had a hard time making friends. And I realized this was a time that I had to invest in a relationship with her. And if I didn't do that now, and I had moved to Nashville, like I may not have had a relationship with her at all. It just, we
Mm.
had such a different, um, we're just so different. So
Yeah.
knowing that, it's like, and I don't, that's hard to like tell people like, yeah, I stayed for that reason or whatever. And people are like, okay, well, we'll find the next person. And,
Mm.
it kind of takes away the human part. And again, the same thing with age too. I feel like I've decided to look at my 30s, because I'm 32, as my 20s. So I'm 22, And I'm gonna that's like the frame of mind. I'm the 22-year-old version I imagined 22-year-old me would be. Because 22-year-old me was so green. And like that's how I swallow my birthdays too every year is okay, if I could go back and be 18 again or 26 again,
Yeah.
not knowing what I know today, would I do it? Absolutely not. Like I love so much more the person that I've become and who I'm becoming. And I don't want to feel like I'm going backwards. So I'm choosing to think, okay, my like, naive younger self would have thought 22-year-old me would be right here. And so that's
Mhm.
like that's how I'm choosing to look at my 30s. And another thing I really admire about the Kardashians is, I think the three older sisters are in their 40s and they're like,
Mhm.
yep, and they just own it. And it's really awesome to see how many people are defying a lot of the stereotypes and the things that I feel like used to be really important in the entertainment or just in business in general. Like, oh, we have to be young, we have to be this, you have to be that. And there's so many people now that are like, well, I'm not, but I'm going to do it anyway. Like Jelly Roll, for
Mhm.
example.
Oh,
Love that guy.
that story, I've heard his story so many times, and it never ceases to amaze me.
Right. It's so good. And seeing him and just how he inspires people, it's like you can't fake that. And
Mhm.
all of the trials, everything he went through, all of the ugly parts, all of the things that maybe, the perfectionistic
Mhm.
formula would say is not okay, actually make him that much more endearing and make his story that much more exciting and interesting. And so that's kind of how I'm choosing to look at my story. It's not what I thought it was going to be, but I also really love so many parts of my life now and how things have shaken out and looking forward to the future as opposed to, for the longest time, especially as a female, I was like, oh my gosh, like you can't turn 30. And I can't tell you how many producers and people would tell me when I told them I was 28, you got 4 years left and then you're done.
No,
And I'm like,
nope.
okay, well,
I
people
disagree.
ask me if I'm 16 all the time. So I'm like, I don't know. Like
Yeah.
it's silly to me at that point. And you just gotta look at it as you're on your own unique timeline um and enjoying life is
Mm.
important because if we died tomorrow and didn't, make the most of today, then what a waste.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I agree. Well, we've completely lost track of time here
Oh, I'm
because,
sorry.
well, no, it's 100% fine because I know we were talking beforehand about, trying to keep this under an hour or whatever, but it's been such a blast chatting with you that
Likewise.
I just was like, I'm going to kind of let this one go and see what happens. Um, so you're in the process of releasing new music and all that stuff. If people want to check that out or check out Bad Boyfriend, which is your most recent single,
Yeah.
uh, where's the best place to find all that?
Spotify, Apple Music. I'm probably the most active on my Instagram. One of my goals this year is to get more involved on TikTok.
Mm.
I just it's like a full-time job,
Right.
honestly. TikTok is a lot, but I'm gonna find my own rhythm with it, and that's something I just moved to a different apartment, like my dream apartment downtown, so I'm excited about that. I finally have a
Nice.
fixed schedule where I'm playing in for people I really respect and a conglomerate that I really have a great time at. So having that now, I'm like, okay, now I can kind of focus on the online stuff. But Instagram is probably where I'm the most active for sure. And then of course Spotify, Apple Music, all the streaming platforms.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, it's been an absolute blast chatting with you. Before we leave, though, we're going to play one fun, quick little game.
Okay.
I hope you don't mind. This game is called That's So Random. And I
Okay.
have a random question generator, and I'm going to just ask you whatever question this thing decides to spit out at me.
Oh gosh. Okay.
So, if you are ready, here we go.
Ready as I'll ever be.
What sequel was actually better than the original?
Shrek 2.
I agree. 100%.
Arguably the best of the series. I cover Livin' La Vida Loca, and that's like part of my shtick all the time on stage. I'm like, this movie, like I'll go out of my way to watch Shrek 2. I'm like, I need to watch the second one.
Nice. I 100% love that. That's amazing. And now for my next trip to Nashville, I'm going to dive deep into my catalog of music and find the most absurd yet perfect cover for me to request for you to play.
I am so here for it. I hope I know it.
Oh, it'll be one of those songs where it's like, dang, okay, yeah, I forgot about that song, but I'll play.
Good.
So cool.
Love.
But really appreciate you taking the time to sit down and chat with us. It's been an absolute blast. We just kind of rolled into it. Like, it's one of those things where it's like, oh, we're just gonna go with it. But really appreciate you. Thank you everybody for tuning in, and we will see you all later.